I'm going to just, start this charter system, and I want you to stay out of trouble. And I'm going to read this to everybody. I'm not reading this to you, Denny, but I want to read this. The RTA was created in 2015 and collaborated with NASCAR, created the charter agreement system, Race Team Alliance. The RTA is currently comprised of 15 race teams, which own the 36 charters in the NASCAR Cup Series. So it's everybody. Hendrick, Gibbs, Penske, RCR, Trackhouse, 2311, etc. So we are in the fourth quarter right now of this. Next year, the charters are ending here in a minute. Where are we at right now?
Well, I'll first say this. I think that this is the single biggest agreement that has gone through our sport in a very, very long time, and it's important that it gets done. The reason that you gave kind of the history of the RTA, and I'll give you a little more to that, is that originally it was started as these race teams need to get together and find a way to have more, whether it's a common fuel card or whatever. Like, they were trying to not go and negotiate deals, commercial deals independently. We probably can get a better price if we go in independent, if we come together and negotiate fuel deals or tire deals or whatever it is for the haulers. That's where it kind of started, right? Is that how can we come together and start to streamline some of our costs, help, because the cost just keeps getting higher. And, sponsorship is starting to level off. And as it went over time, sponsorship started to decline a little bit. Ratings declined with it. And the teams are the ones that felt the most pressure by that, right? There's salaries that got cut, drivers, employees, everything just started getting cut. All while there is record revenue going into our sport. So that, has brought it to the last few years where, big team owners that have been part of the sport for decades have went to Jim France and says, we need help. Like, our teams are dropping like flies. Like, we have championship teams, boom, out of business. Like, how can we stop this? You guys are doing really, really well. We are struggling to break even or not lose millions and millions of dollars. And so they went to Jim asking for help and received back quite simply, sorry, you cut your deal back in 2016, and you're going to live by what that deal is. And this was 5 or so years ago. They came to Jim saying, at least give us a break on our hard cards. No, ain't going to do nothing for you. Live by the deal that you cut. So that put an emphasis in my mind to us saying, we better get this deal right then, because he ain't going to come back and retrade this deal 4 years from now, right? We better get it right now. And so what we've been up against is other leagues that have locked arms and decided that they are going to lock arms with the league and then grow the sport together. NASCAR does that poorly than any other sport by far. Like, ask any sponsor that tries to come in. They say it's the most complicated sport to ever participate in because the tracks own this real estate, NASCAR owns this, the teams own that. Like, it's not homologated, I guess you could say. So we're trying to make it more simple, and we're trying to go to NASCAR and say, let's lock arms. Let's do this together. We'll give you these rights to go shop for us. That way, when you go get an official sponsor, it goes to all of us. Same as what the NBA, the NFL, MLB does. When they go get a league sponsor, every team gets a little piece of that, and then the league gets a portion as well. It's not like that. We compete for the same sponsors that NASCAR does. We have our own sponsors that NASCAR will send their own sponsorship proposal to try to get them to spend money with them. And it's like, but we need them the most because of our business model, right? It costs us $18 million a year to put a car on the racetrack. We've asked NASCAR to just cover our costs. Nothing more, just cover our costs to go put on this show for you. And the answer has been repeatedly, no. You will get what we give you, and you'll like it. And if you don't, then just don't be part of this. Now, what do you do in that instance, right? So we're banging our heads up against the wall because repeatedly, as these negotiations have gone on, there's been no negotiation, Kenny. It's been every response, every proposal they send back to us is worse than the previous. Mm-hmm. That is factual. It keeps getting worse. So when you ask me where are we at today, we are worse off than we were 2 years ago. And we are 6 months, 8 months away from the Daytona 500, and there not being any charters. So, and why the race fans should care about that is that the reason Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports show up every week is because there's a charter deal. We get a payment to show up every single week. If there is no charter deal, we will pick and choose what the best paying races are, and we'll go run those races. And then some weeks you won't see us at the racetrack because maybe that race doesn't pay quite as good, or maybe we don't have a sponsor for that race.
The Wood brothers used to do that with David Pearson. They never ran all the races back in Pearson's glory days.
But that's not good, right, for the sport. You want to see your superstars on the racetrack every single week, which is why this charter agreement needs to get done. And while NASCAR needs to understand that the teams and these drivers, they are the stars and they are the cars. And that is what people come to see each and every week. If you don't believe that, then how many people go to watch an ARCA race on Friday? The cars look the same.
Yeah.
The only thing that's different is the drivers, right? They're the ones that people come to see, the stars, right? And the Hendrick Motorsports and the Joe Gibbs Racings of the world. So I wish I had better news for you, but until we see NASCAR come our way a little bit, I just don't know where this goes, right? I mean, eventually there's going to have to be some pain for somebody in this thing for there to be any sort of resolution, right? No negotiation has ever come easy. No one says, okay, that's what you want? Okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and back the Brinks truck up and we'll just drop the money off to you. It doesn't work that way. Somebody has to feel pain for somebody to budge or move. And I just think that at this point, NASCAR does not feel threatened by the teams whatsoever. I think that they feel like we are all replaceable. You can argue that offline. I have my opinions of that. But these guys helped build the sport for years and years. And when we ask for permanent charters, what we're asking for is long-term asset, something that we can sell if we ever do go out of business, right? We saw with Stewart-Haas, at least they didn't leave the sport empty-handed, right? They at least got paid for their charters. That's what we're hoping to get, right? If they're not going to give us enough money to survive year to year, at least give us an asset that is worth something in the long run. You can't say no to both. That is not a fair deal. When I mentioned the three big stakeholders, the tracks, NASCAR, and the teams, there's 2/3 of this deal that is doing very, very well and 1/3 that is not doing well. That is not fair. And if you want us to lock arms and push this sport together forward, we must all be healthy.
So I'm going to ask some questions that I've learned. So it could easily, at the end of this year, charters could not exist. Doesn't NASCAR have a responsibility? Because we just watched some teams pay Gene Haas $25 million. What would happen if at the end of this year, NASCAR said charters don't exist, and they just got done paying Gene Haas $25 million? Does NASCAR have a responsibility? I mean, how could that just all go into thin air?
That's what we're trying to protect against. You're bringing up a very valid point. That's what we're trying to protect against.
It's kindergarten stuff,
I hear you, but this sport is run differently, and unfortunately, is run by someone who says, this is what's worked for 75 years and I'm not changing.
Who's that guy that bought that team, Michael McDowell team? What's that name again? I got brain fade. They just bought the charter.
Front row.
Okay, so Gene Haas could look at Front Row right now and go, suckers, I got your money. Now you don't even have a charter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's probably provisions in there, like more than likely Bob Jenkins put provisions in there that says, okay, this deal will go through as long as there are charters.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So
Thank you.
Attorneys would never put that at risk, I would think.
It's good information.
You know what I mean? To say, okay, we will do this as long as there is a charter agreement and it's by a certain date or something. And if not, if you got to get an extension, you got to get an extension. But you can't sell something that doesn't exist. So I think Gene Haas wants to see this charter deal done because you can't sell something that doesn't exist, right? So
Okay, so we have the history. I always remind people, I'm 60, you're 43, you're a baby. There are documentaries out there all day long on YouTube. This battle has been waged before. And Big Bill France said, go ahead, boys, quit. And they brought the Xfinity series in, and those guys ran at Talladega, and all hell broke loose, and it never worked. What do you think we've learned? Because obviously that business model, first of all, I want to say this. Here's my disclaimer. I love NASCAR. Yep. It made me a living.
Me too.
I'm a wealthy man because of it. So what did we learn from that back then so that it won't happen this time? Maybe, like you said, maybe just don't run all the races.
I mean, when was that? Like the 60s or 70s, right? I think it was a Talladega or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny, I don't know if you've seen the Xfinity garage now, but it's a shell of what it used to be. Good luck getting those guys to go buy next gen cars that cost a fortune.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You know what I mean? Good luck trying to get 36 next gen cars on the racetrack if you don't have the current teams that are participating. So listen, there's too much at stake for both sides.
Yeah.
It needs to be a fair deal. It's not close to fair currently. And we just need some movement to help make it a little bit better.
Okay.
Listen, the minute there's no charter deal, you're going to have Michael Jordan being pissed because he just invested into this sport, and you got someone that's willing to just sweep it and take it all away whenever they want to. That is just ridiculous, and it shouldn't happen. And a team like 2311 that has invested significant money in this sport and helped grow it over the last 4 years deserves to have some franchise value attached to that.
Yeah. I know Jim France is going to hear about this. I had a great conversation with Ben Kennedy. My message to NASCAR, I know y'all are listening. I'm a little corny at times. I love you guys. You gave me a life. But I had to talk to Denny about this. I promised Denny I'd keep him out of trouble. It's top news. Respectfully, you cannot expect us not to talk about it. So thank you.
And we all have the same goals, and that's to grow this together.
Right.
When we met with NASCAR about this, a month ago, we're like, let's lock arms and do this. This sport is a sleeping giant if you're just willing to change. Just because it's what you did for 50, 60 years, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do now. Every sport has evolved over time. We have got to evolve. And people like Ben Kennedy have done a great job of changing the schedule around, taking us to places like Chicago. It's been fantastic what they've done with schedule variation over the last few years. The next gen car, right? I mean, while some may like it, some may not, it's still been a net positive for our sport. And, the access to be competitive is easier now than what it has been before. So we're doing a lot of good things. I just hate that we keep hanging up, and this has been a subject for a better part of 2 years, and that we just can't get a fair deal done. Because if we ever can, the sport will take off, and they need the teams to be able to do that, and the teams need NASCAR. So, let's get this deal done.
I want to end like this on that deal. I'm wanting myself and my wife around 10 o'clock at night. We watch a couple episodes of The Crown on Netflix, and I'm learning about the British monarchy. I'm just learning. And one of the media members was able to meet with Queen Elizabeth, and he said, "You need to show some humility." And she says, "Well, what do you mean?" And the media member said, "You need to like address your people during Christmas and show that you all are normal people." And so now Queen Elizabeth, she's gone now, but she had started doing a Christmas address because show some humility. And she changed her way, and it's part of history. I think sometimes we try to stay tough because we think it's that old saying: you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And I'm assuming that's what NASCAR's thinking. Okay, thank you so much for that.